Thank you. Please be seated. All right. So will the clerk please read item 4?
Item 4, presentation, citizen survey results preview.
Okay, we have a presentation light tonight, and our Deputy City Manager, Nanette Nealon, will explain that. So,
good evening, Mayor and City Council. Tonight, in the spirit of how Council's been asking for information to be delivered to you and give you enough time to look at it, the volume of information that came in our citizen survey was robust, and we thought we would take about a month time for you to receive the document and digest it such that our consultants can come in and give you an overview and you can ask specific questions. At the same time, we made it available to the public. It's on the website. And so today is just the official transmittal of the report to City Council.
okay, thank you very much. All right, will the clerk please read item 5?
Item 5, presentation, South of 6th Sustainability Neighborhood Certification.
All right, and I'd like to welcome down Ms. Madeline Keating, our Sustainable Neighborhoods intern. Good evening, welcome.
Thank you. Okay, thank you.
We're warming up. In the meantime, for those folks who weren't able to join us, we just had a nice little reception to celebrate our 5 sustainable neighborhoods outside and got to hear a little bit from each neighborhood about what they're doing, and I think we might hear a little bit more now.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for having me today. My name is Madeline Keating. I'm the Sustainable Neighborhoods intern, and I'd like to thank you all for taking the time to recognize these great residents and neighborhoods who have put so much time and dedication into their neighborhood sustainability projects. So I'm going to talk today about the Sustainable Neighborhoods program, and I'm going to start by giving all of you a little overview about where we are with the program and the success that we've had this year. We have one new program joining our ranks as an outstanding sustainable neighborhood, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the projects they've been doing this year, followed by some of the projects, thank you, from the 4 recertified neighborhoods that will also be recertified as outstanding sustainable neighborhoods. So the Sustainable Neighborhood Program is a resident-driven neighborhood sustainability program that encourages neighbors to do creative sustainability projects that are workshops, resources, and projects for their neighbors and residents. And it was actually created in Lakewood here in 2012, and there's a lot to be proud of as the creators of this program. We've gotten a lot of national inquiries from other cities interested in similar programming. We have received national awards for sustainability and planning. And we've also shared this program recently with the City and County of Denver, who this year has launched their 9th and 10th sustainable neighborhoods in their program, which is really exciting to see this growing around our metro area and around the country. So the way the program works is that neighborhoods identify projects that support neighborhood sustainability, and they base the projects around the program goal areas that are sustainability based. Based on these projects, incentives, resources that the neighbors provide for their neighborhoods, they earn credits based on the accomplishments of the projects. And after earning a certain number of credits, the neighborhoods become certified, or in many cases recertified, by the city. After the certification, they receive custom signage in their neighborhood that I'm sure all of you have seen around the city of Lakewood, and they receive recognition from the city like they are all getting tonight. So thank you for that. So what are the benefits of a program like this? Well, really what it's doing is helping to build resilient, sustainable, vibrant, and healthy communities through innovative leadership, by residents that are creating customized solutions that they need and want to see in their neighborhoods. This builds pride not only in the neighborhoods, but for the city of Lakewood, seeing these projects being initiated. Today in Lakewood, we have 5 sustainable neighborhoods. This includes Iber, south of 6th, Belmar, Southern Gables, and Lake Lockwood Village. If any of you were in the reception before, you saw a lot of these neighbors get to speak about some of their projects. Today, south of 6th neighborhood is going to be joining the other 4 neighborhoods as an outstanding sustainable neighborhood certification. So 2015-2016 has been a really exciting year for us. Combined, all of the neighborhoods have done 83 workshops and events, and this includes 2,600 combined attendance of residents at these events. Over 250 hours of volunteer time have been committed to neighborhood resources that tend to act as ways that neighbors can learn about sustainability projects or how to do different sustainability type things. And not only are these neighborhood projects making a difference in the neighborhoods, they're also helping Lakewood to advance community-wide sustainability goals that are laid out in the Lakewood Sustainability Plan. And this year, we think that they've accomplished at least 13 of the 16 targets for the sustainability plan. So I'm going to transition now over to the South of 6th neighborhood, who is this first year as getting an outstanding sustainable neighborhood recognition, and that's our highest certification for these neighborhoods. So will representatives from South of 6th please come and join me up front? You can go. So this is a map of sustainable South of 6th, and for each of these neighborhoods, I just want everyone to know that these are resident-led initiatives. So if you do see your neighborhood up here and you decide you want to become more involved, feel free to reach out. Each neighborhood has an email and a variety of different ways to get in touch or learn more and get more information. So South of 6th is getting recognized tonight for a number of their great initiatives that have led to their credits that from projects that these awesome people and residents of the community have put together. South of 6th is the first neighborhood to do a Youth Connections initiative, which really brings youth together to get to know each other and be educated and excited about sustainability issues. This includes things like park cleanups and fire station tours. They're also doing a lot around responsible recycling and disposal. For example, just last night, the neighborhood had their annual neighborhood picnic, which was zero waste, and there was so much interest in eliminating waste. They ended up eliminating about 60 pounds that would have gone to the landfill that instead went to recycling and composting. In order to have better social cohesion in the neighborhood, they've worked a lot on communications and outreach, doing partnerships and saying different things about sustainability on Facebook and welcoming new residents. And they've been doing Eat and Learn initiative that really brings residents together to learn more about sustainability issues. So specifically, some of these highlights include, like I said, the annual Zero Waste Picnic. They recently had a solar living workshop at one of their neighbors' homes who has solar panels installed. This year they did a holiday cookie decorating event for their youth that was then donated. All the cookies were, that is. They've done a lot of youth fire station tours and a number of neighborhood celebrations, in addition to a number of other great events. So they got 102 credits to get them to this certification, and this included 17 workshops and special events, and over 300 people in attendance at all of these events, which is really awesome. So congratulations, South of 6th. I'd like to invite Mayor Adam Paul and the councilors from Ward 1 to come and join these awesome South of 6th residents for a photo, and we have a little presentation for you that is a mock-up sign of the signage that you will be getting in your neighborhood. It is going to be installed later this year, and so here we go. And you can keep that. Thank you, and congratulations, South of Sixth. I'm going to transition now to the remaining 4 neighborhoods that are being recertified as outstanding sustainable neighborhoods. Some have ranging from 2 to 4 years being recertified. I actually would love to invite some of those neighbors up now to be, just stand while I, if there's any neighbors from any of the neighborhoods that want to come up and stand while I'm doing the recognition.
Come on down. There's a lot.
Go for it.
Don't be shy. Come on down.
All right, so I'm going to start with Iber. Iber was one of our first neighborhoods to be certified, and they were certified for the first time in 2013 and are being recertified for the 4th time this year. They have had continued efforts a lot this year on projects that they've been working on their entire time through this program, including the Resilience Circle, which many of you mentioned, or which all of you mentioned at the reception. These resilience circles are potlucks with rotating topics and sustainability speakers to inform residents about sustainability issues. And ongoing work on the Be Safe initiative, which really encourages neighbors not to use pesticides that might be harmful to pollinators, and instead encourages them to plant species that are helpful for pollinators. And you'll see more of these signs around town. They've put up about 150 so far, and we're hoping to put some signs on bus stops around town as well. So this is actually what the signs look like. This year, Iber has done 136 credits to get their certification, with also 17 workshops and special events, and 130 plus Resilience Circle attendees over their monthly Resilience circles. So congratulations, Iber. Next, Belmar is one of 2 certified neighborhoods after Iber in 2013, so they are also going on their 4th year as being a certified neighborhood. They also have been working on continued efforts through the many years that they've been in this program, especially around increased recycling, including retrofitting buildings, doing outreach with local businesses, and doing specific recycling initiatives such as electronics recycling and informing residents about where they can recycle what around their neighborhood. This year, Belmar earned 104 credits with 46 in attendance at the Alternative Transportation Workshop and over 500 people at their National Night Out. So congratulations, Belmar. Next, I'd like to recognize Sustainable Southern Gables. Southern Gables was recognized for the first time in 2014, and they're going on their 3rd year as a recertified Outstanding Sustainable Neighborhood. Again, their initiatives can continue to grow. While they've got some new ones, they also have many that are just getting stronger, such as their annual leaf collection, which they got a sustainability award for, and their annual seed and plant swap. They've also done things like tours at the National Renewable Energy Lab and energy workshops. This year, Sustainable Southern Gables earned 171 credits to get their certification. This included 14 workshops and special events and over 400 attendees at their workshops and events. So congratulations, Southern Gables. Finally, I'd like to recognize Lake Lockwood Village, which is the only HOA-run organized neighborhood within the program, and they are now going on their 2nd year of recertification after getting certified for the first time last year in 2015. They've had a number of workshops and projects, including work towards active living and promoting local artists, as Susie mentioned at the reception. But one of the biggest projects they've been working on this year is a focus on a very large neighborhood-wide improvement to landscape to reduce water use in their neighborhood. And as you can see on this slide, that includes a 20% goal to reduce outdoor water use by 2020. Lake Lockwood Village has earned 98 credits this year with a total of 9 workshops and special events. And so that's great. And congratulations, Lake Lockwood Village. And at this time, I'd actually like to invite South of 6 back up so that we can get a picture of all of the outstanding neighborhoods with the mayor. I have another little sign for whoever wants. So, yeah.
I was wondering what we were going to do.
Yeah. Yeah, let's get cozy. Thank you. So again, thank you, first of all, for putting up with that photo. It's going to look really good. Also, thank you again to all of the residents involved in this program for your commitment to your neighborhoods, to sustainability, to health and community in the city of Lakewood. And thank you again for this opportunity to present to you today.
Well, Ms. Keating, thank you for that presentation. Before everybody leaves, I think you probably have some comments from this group up here. So let me get to that. And Council President Shakti.
I just want to say that we, up here, we don't always do a good job of making service look fun. And you've all done a great job of that. Thank you for all you do.
Councilor Gutwein.
Thank you. First of all, I just wanted to congratulate South of 6. I don't know where Jen, great job. I know you all worked so hard to get here, so congratulations. And then I just also wanted to congratulate all of the neighborhoods. This program has such a special place in my heart. This is how I got involved in all of this stuff. I'd never done anything with any level of government before this, so it was just a really empowering experience to get to feel like I got to make a difference with my neighbors. And the relationships and the connections that we made were just really, really special memories to me. So thank you very much. And I really appreciate all the work you do. It really matters. Thank you.
Councilor Abel.
This Sustainable Neighborhood Program is one of the best community building ideas that government has ever come up with. And I think it reminds us that we should all be better stewards of the land. Everything these folks do is makes our planet healthier. Thank you.
Councilor Harrison.
I just wanted to say a special thank you to Jonathan for all of his brainchild coming to fruition. He really needs that because he did something really special for the city of Lakewood that really put us on the map. And then the other question following Councilor Gutwein's comment, which one of you are going to be running for city council next? Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to personally congratulate the South of 6th Avenue. I am so proud of you. And of the recipients here tonight, 2 of you are from Ward 1. That hasn't gone unnoticed. You know, the programs that you're doing are meaningful. They're going to make a difference in our next generation here in our city. But really, what is important and what impresses me the most are the people that are on a day-to-day basis giving of your time, your talent, stepping to the table to be present for this community. You are what makes Lakewood Lakewood. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'll just echo lastly, I had an opportunity to speak with these folks, but the key to this program is not only making a difference for your community, but it's getting together and knowing your neighbor and building the community. And that has been so special. We heard it over and over tonight about how getting out, meeting folks, having an exchange of ideas has been so healthy. And that's what this program is all about. So thank you all. And you're more than welcome to stay or just go have a good evening.
Your options.
All right. So next up we have public comment. And this is the point in the meeting where the public is invited to address the City Council on items that did not appear on the agenda. All comments should be directed to the City Council. I'll ask that all in attendance observe the decorum of the City Council chambers and refrain from applause or audible support or discord with the speaker. There's a 3-minute time limit. Your little light up here will glow green. When you have 30 seconds left, it'll go yellow, and when your time is up, it'll go red, and I will politely try to wrap you up from that point. We have a couple of different hearings tonight, so if you can wait for a quick second. So again, this is for non-agenda items. If you're here to speak on the ordinance later on in the evening or the consent agenda, we'll have separate public comment periods for that. First up on the roster is Mr. James Mace. Good evening, James. Come on down.
Give me a moment, Mayor, please.
Yeah, take your time.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council members, James Mace, Ward 2. The reason I am here tonight is to update you guys on what I said 2 weeks ago. I have found some information on the better way to stop bullies in schools. I have also found a better way to stop them all over the community. I have been talking to people, and I am really hoping that I can put a video together on how to do this. I do have the ARC of Jefferson Clear Creek in Gilpin County is working with me on this. But the issue is that I'm running into is getting the information. I also have figured out why we've had a bunch of school shootings in the state of Colorado. And 99.9% of it is because of bullies. I am planning on putting this video together as quickly as possible. If there's any questions, comments, I do welcome those comments. Mayor, if I may, I have a quick 30-second list of all the school shootings that we have had in the state of Colorado right here in my hand. May I read those real quick? Okay. Okay. I'm only going to read one off.
Take your time. You're fine.
Yeah. 1999, it looks like on the record we have had 20 in the state of Colorado. Now, I don't know how accurate that is, but I'm also going to bring back memory of what happened at Columbine in 1999. We need to better things. Instead of responding after a tragedy. We should all respond before a tragedy happens. So, I'm just letting you guys know that that is my goal. That is what I'm going to do. And I would really appreciate it if, I will be back to you guys in about 2 weeks with a full overview on the plan. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next up, I have Lynn Werturski. Hi, good evening. Welcome. All right.
I chose the wrong night to be here, apparently, because the Sustainable Neighborhood Program obviously is a major success. I'm here to speak about something pretty much the opposite. I've lived on and very near Belmar Park for 15 years. I have yet to see so many, excuse me, I don't have a better term, maybe homeless / bum / beggars in Belmar Park that you don't even want to walk anymore. There's clothes hanging on the trees, there's blankets swung from the bushes, there's hammocks. I mean, it's just not a good environment, in my opinion. You can't go to the Swedish Medical Center here on the corner, or Wadsworth and Alameda. King Soopers, they're sitting out front. And I would just hope that there was something collectively, constructively, underline constructively, that could be done to, this is really, my opinion only, is that the light rail, you can get on without a ticket quite easily. It's a random check. You don't have to go through a gate or anything. And I think it's really attracting a lot of people that maybe otherwise would be better contained in some kind of a structure or whatever, but they're sleeping in the gazebos. You call the police, and the police say they're not breaking the law, so there's nothing you can do. But I hate to see I love Lakewood. I've been here 15 years. I've traveled the world. There's no place I'd rather be. But I'm discouraged by the amount of the last year. And I've never spoken here before, so obviously to me it's a big issue. I thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for coming out. And we'll circle back after public comment. I have a couple things. Next up, Scott Redmond. Good evening. Welcome.
I was here a couple months ago, and my issue is the noise and the speed on Morrison Road at Bear Creek. And pretty much all over Lakewood, the noise of the motorcycles, all the traffic, the aggressive driving. I was here, like I said, about 2 months ago, and I did get an immediate response. I thank for that. The commander of traffic, I think his name is Rydell, called me, and also Jay Hudson's called me. And that weekend was the best weekend. All my neighbors complimented for 20 years. There were people being pulled, just their presence. Everybody, I didn't know 55 was so slow. The noise, you could actually sit on your patio. But it is, living at the corner at that stoplight is a staging light. It's against the law to accelerate that way. That's what they tell me. The exhaust systems are illegal. That's noise pollution. We make people get exhaust permits for licenses, but every one of these, the EPA makes a manufacturer's stamp for authorized exhaust systems, and then they go out and change it. They shouldn't be on the road. And to find out, we don't have traffic patrol on weekends. I did not know that. To me, that's when especially on Morrison, coming out of the town of Morrison and all the speeding, that's when most of your DUIs and your aggressive driving is. We have no police presence. They pulled a kid over doing 83 miles an hour. I think he didn't have a license and plates or something. I went and talked to the officer, and I was amazed that, if you're driving illegally, you're not going to do 83. But even my kids say, everybody knows there's no cops on this road. Jay Hudson, the one thing I'm running into a problem with Lakewood and CDOT is Yeah, we have a problem, but we have no money. It's up to you to do something, Scott. So if I want to build a retaining wall or a berm, it's going to be the Scott wall. My HOA is trying to work with something, but for some reason there's no money in the budget to take care of the existing, and I saw the sustainability thing. Boy, this would work in great because noise pollution, not just in my neighborhood, throughout Lakewood with these vehicles. I work for CenturyLink, so I drive all of Lakewood. I see it nonstop from 8 in the morning till 4:30 at night. Aggressive driving, loud driving. It's sad to say. Denver has ordinances for the decibel levels. They got fed up with it. I think Lakewood could do something about that, and I don't know where to turn. I'm turning to you guys because this is where my tax dollar goes. I need some help. I'd like to make a law. I'd like to lower the speed limit on Morrison, if possible. But to outlaw some of these exhaust systems and put decibel levels at least after 9 o'clock, it would be appreciated. Thanks.
Thank you. So that exhausts the public comment roster. Anybody else wish to speak? All right. With that, I will close public comment. Mr. Mace, you're still here. I appreciate you continuing to work on this. I know we reached out to the school district, and they also have some bowling programs, and maybe they could be an asset for you as well to get some of their information. Anti-bullying, sorry. Thank you, Ms. Hodson. The homeless situation, I would say probably to a person up here, is something that we've seen much higher levels of this summer than we have in the past. And it's something that's not just a Lakewood solution, it's something that's a regional solution. And there are conversations going on. The best thing that we can start to do now is notify us, let us know so we can start keeping track, so we can start looking at these numbers. We had a call come in today. I'm not quite sure if we have a loitering ordinance. I don't think that we do unless you're underage. So that's something that the council could look at as well. But these are conversations that we're going to continue to have and continue to look for solutions throughout the region. So appreciate you letting us know, and it's definitely unfortunate, and we're seeing a lot more of it. And Mr. Redmond, you have our attention. Our deputy city manager, we will get back with you. You know, there's a lot of areas that would like to see sound walls, 6th Avenue, different areas, and ironically, sometimes a sound wall just kicks the sound to the neighborhood or the block next door. So I'm not sure exactly where we are on the sound wall. I've seen some correspondence, but definitely enforcement is something that we can take a look at, step up. We do have an ordinance on noise levels. It's just hard to prove those sort of things with decibels, but maybe that's something else. But I think that we can continue to look at enforcement, find out if we do indeed not have traffic out on the weekends. That was surprising. I'm not sure if that's the case either, but this is where you should come, and we will keep trying to work on it. Okay? All right. Next up is the consent agenda. The use of the consent agenda has been made to expedite council action. It contains both resolutions and first reading ordinances. Resolutions are items of routine nature. Members of the public will have an opportunity in a moment to comment on any of the proposed resolutions. First reading ordinances appear on the agenda only for the purpose of setting future public hearing dates and ordering the newspaper publication of the proposed ordinance. No public comment will be heard this evening on first reading ordinances. The public will have the opportunity to comment on the proposed ordinances during the scheduled public hearings on the dates set tonight by the City Council. Any council member may request any item on the consent agenda be removed for separate discussion and action under general business. Will the clerk please read the consent agenda into the record?
The consent agenda consists of items 7 through 12 inclusive. Item 7, Resolution 2016-35, appointing Lakewood's initial members of the Rooney Valley Zoning Commission in accordance with the 2016 intergovernmental agreement with the town of Morrison. Item 8, Resolution 2016-63, authorizing the adoption of the First Amendment to the City of Lakewood amended and restated Deferred Compensation Plan and Trust Agreement. Item 9, Resolution 2016-37, authorizing the adoption of the 8th Amendment to the amended and restated Lakewood Money Purchase Pension Plan and Trust Agreement. Item 10, Resolution 2016-38, approving a contract between the City of Lakewood and Anton Collins Mitchell LLP to conduct the annual financial statement audit for the City of Lakewood. Item 11, Ordinance O 2016-12, declaring the intent of the City of Lakewood to acquire interest in property for public purposes for the construction of a multi-use path along the west side of Sheridan Boulevard and authorizing negotiations with property owners, acceptance of conveyance instruments, and condemnation of real property interest, subject to further council approval. And item 12, approving the minutes of the regular City Council meeting of April 25th, 2016.
Thank you very much. Mr. Cox.
Just very quickly, Mr. Mayor, for the sake of completeness, I think the second item, Margie, the number of the resolution, could you repeat that one, please?
Resolution 2016-36.
Yes, thank you. I think there was a mix-up with the number on that one. Thanks.
All right, I will now open the public comment period on any of the mentioned resolutions. Nobody has signed up to speak. Anybody in chambers wish to speak? With that, I'll close public comment and ask for a motion.
Mayor Paul, I move for approval of the council minutes, order all ordinances introduced on first reading to be published in the Denver Post with public hearing set for the date included in the ordinance, and for adoption of resolutions, all of which are included in the consent agenda items introduced into the record by the city clerk.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second. Any questions from the council? Any comments? Seeing none, please cast your vote. And the consent agenda passes 11 ayes, 0 nays. Will the clerk please read item 13 into the record?
Item 13, Resolution 2016-34, approving the service plan for Sheridan Station West Metropolitan District.
All right, we do have a presentation on this, and first up we'll bring the applicant, Doug Alenowitz. Good evening, welcome.
Okay. Good evening, and thank you all for having us attend here this evening and the opportunity to speak before you. I have been in front of council several times this past year working on the project. This is a continuation of it, but for a little bit of background and memory jogging, just given all the matters that come before you. My name is Doug Alenowitz. I'm a principal with a company called Trailbreak Partners. We are based here in the Denver metro area and focus on sustainable urban infill redevelopment. Today we're here talking about development around the Sheridan Light Rail Station. As I was listening this evening, one of the things that popped into my head was when we were here for the rezone that I'll touch on in a few moments from back in April, I believe it was the Lakewood Sustainability Awards night. And I commented when we got up to talk about it because underneath all of this complexity and things that we've been working through really is the heart of the matter is trying to focus on sustainable, thoughtful redevelopment, density in the right places, use of resources in a compelling way. And so I found it interesting that here we were again with a big sustainability kickoff, and I commend Lakewood on doing that and hope that continues. I'm joined by two partners in the project. Paul Malone is partner and president of a home building company called Dirk Homes, and Scott Watkins with TOD Properties, who owns property in the neighborhood and has been working on this for some time. So why are we here? Today's purpose is a little bit different than the last time I was in front of you. Again, this is a focus on how to activate thoughtful development around the Sheridan Station area, and specifically today, the ask is for approval of a service plan to allow district organization. And it's a metropolitan district, and there's three kind of key reasons that we're really interested in it. One is to assist in the efficient financing of public infrastructure. The second reason is for the perpetual operation and maintenance of that public infrastructure, that there's no other vehicle for to maintain it. And then the third is it can serve a very important function in covenant enforcement. Specifically, the area that we're talking about is in the yellow box there. It's bound between 10th Avenue, West 10th Avenue and West 11th Avenue, hundreds of feet from the platform, and just across the border there in Lakewood, border from Denver. So a little bit of background. The city, through various different studies and instruments that were ultimately adopted by council, identified the Sheridan Station area and the TOD as critical to long-range planning and economic goals of the city. That was a determination that was made long before I got involved here in trying to figure out how do you take these ideas and then make them a reality. Those same documents identified that the lack of public infrastructure in this area is a significant impediment to the development outcomes that the city was seeking and the residents were seeking. Over the last 18 months, we've been working in a collaborative manner, we believe, to try to pick up on those planning documents, talk with community about them, and understand what a vision would be for a walkable transit residential neighborhood. And one of the things we've really been focused on is providing accessibly priced for-sale housing. That's what we're trying to do in this specific location. In 2015, we submitted our first concept plan to the planning department, and included in that were two concepts that were very important. One was the notion of right zoning, which is what we were in front of council talking about several months ago, and thank you for your support in that. And the second piece of it was the Metropolitan District, acknowledging that it was already known out there that this lack of infrastructure was going to be a challenge that needed to be thoughtfully addressed. The city's response to that pre-planning application acknowledged support, subject to going through the work that we've continued to do in good faith. One, the importance of the rezone, and two, the importance of a metropolitan district as a tool to be able to address some of these issues. In April 2016, you guys were kind enough to support us in our vision in the community with the approval of the rezone for this area, the right zone, and we thank you for that. And so today, what we're really here to talk about is the next step in realizing this vision, and that is the Metropolitan District as a tool to effectuate these outcomes. The area that we're talking about, that was the big yellow box there, breaking it down into smaller pieces. The initial district boundary, the piece that we're most immediately talking about is 5 acres in that box that's colored green. That's the initial district boundary. Right now we have a plan that we've been going through that's 135, 136 for sale, accessibly priced homes, townhomes, a handful of single family and duplex mixed in with it. It's not a fully baked cake, but that's the direction that we've been working very well with the city and others to go down the path. The box, you'll note, is bigger, and that is enabling. That is a future inclusion area. It could provide for an additional 5.5 acres in there. And what that does is only when a property owner 100% wants to become involved in the district, they opt into it. And so that's what that inclusion area is. It's to contemplate the future. And as an example, we currently are under contract on other properties in that area, in the shaded in white. And when those are purchased, we would be thinking about including those in, again, to be able to provide the necessary support resources for development in that location. So a district is necessary because the Sheridan Station West Metropolitan District, it needs to be competitive from a development standpoint. There's no jurisdiction or entity currently willing to undertake the financing, construction, or the ongoing perpetual maintenance of the public improvements that are required to be able to develop in this area. The Metro District as a tool is highly regulated, one, and it is the most cost-effective method to finance public infrastructure. It is development paying its own way. It generates independent revenues for the users of the benefit. The folks that directly benefit from these improvements are the ones that pay the way. It's efficient because, unlike writing a check on the front end, which would, to pay for all of this, it would increase the purchase price to be able to get into these types of projects. It allows the amortization of those costs over an extended period of time, and that makes it financially efficient and is one of the key pieces that's going to allow us to be able to deliver accessibly priced housing. And then, very, very important to this, because people tend to get focused on just the dollars that are surrounding it, is it's a terrific tool for that perpetual operations and maintenance. When you're developing around transit stop, the intensity of the infrastructure to allow those outcomes needs to be maintained. And very often this is privately owned public infrastructure, and this is the tool to be able to do that. So with that having been said, I'm going to hand it over to Megan Becker. She is with McGeady Becker, is the counsel that has been assisting us with this process, because she can answer a lot more technical questions than I can. So thank you.
Sir. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name's Megan Becker. As Doug said, I'm with McGeady Becker, and our firm represents the applicant in this matter. Our firm represents and organizes special districts, so this is my specialty. It's what I do. And I'm just going to go over tonight some of the technicalities, and obviously I'm available to answer any questions you might have. But what is a metropolitan district? I know you've been working with your staff on those issues. It's a quasi-municipal corporation and political subdivision. It's a form of local government. It's organized and governed pursuant to Colorado statute.
Hold on, Mike.
Am I not close enough? Better?
Better? Back there? Yeah, better.
Better? Okay, great. It is a form of local government. It's governed by a board of directors, in this case a 5-member board of directors. They're all elected by majority vote of registered electors. They're elected to 4-year staggered terms, and that continues for the life of the district. Every 4 years, May of even-numbered years, there'll be an election and the ability to turn over the board of directors at that time. There's also the ability, when there is a vacancy, that vacancy can be appointed until the next regular election, when someone new can come in as well. It's governed by a service plan. So the document in front of you that we're asking for you to consider approval of tonight is that service plan document. It's kind of like an Articles of Incorporation, bylaws. This says what the district can do, in addition to having to follow all state statute. This is the document we pull up and we say, okay, what is a district authorized to do? It authorizes the district to install, construct, finance public infrastructure, and operate and maintain that infrastructure as stated in that document. So that's the document everyone's going to come back to say, okay, what are our obligations? What are our liabilities? What is our ability to perform? Specifically, the service plan acknowledges, because the district is a entity of statute, needs to follow what the statute authorizes it to do. In this case, the public improvements, sanitation improvements, water improvements, street and safety protection, park and recreation, transportation, and I know, mosquito control. You don't usually think of that as a separate power, but it is separately stated, and it is important when you have detention, retention facilities and parks that have mosquitoes. So those are the basic powers that the district would be authorized to implement. What are its sources of revenues to allow it to implement those things? District bonds, much like cities, counties, the district would be authorized to go to the market and issue bonds with often tax-exempt benefits to finance those improvements long-term. And that's something the district here would be authorized to do. So bonds would be issued, proceeds come in, those proceeds can be spent on improvements. Bonds typically supported by property taxes. So here we're proposing that the district would be authorized to impose both a debt service and an operations mill levy. The debt service component is what would help pay those bonds, again, over a long term, typically a 30-year amortization for those bonds. Also, as a local government, the district has the right to receive specific ownership taxes. As I'm sure you all know, that's the component that's associated with the vehicle purchase. Since the district is a local government that gets divided based upon assessed value amongst all local governments, the district does receive a portion of that as a component of its mill levy as well. That often gets pledged to the bonds as well, the debt service component. Finally, district fees. The districts are authorized to impose fees, both of a capital nature and for operations and maintenance. What we've got in the service plan is actually a limitation on the district's ability to impose fees for capital purposes, to say that once there is an end user, the district can't impose another fee for capital purposes. The goal of that capital fee is to get money up front to assist in financing the infrastructure. After that, we don't want residents to have to deal with an additional fee once they're living in their homes. But the district would be authorized, if necessary, to impose a fee that would recur on a regular basis for operations purposes to assist in the operations and maintenance component if they need to supplement that operations and maintenance mill levy. That would be authorized. So that's kind of the bundle. The district would not be authorized to impose sales taxes. So that you don't see it listed because that's not something the district will do. A lot of questions we get is, what are the protections here? Like, how do we know that the district, what are the parameters of what a district can do? People that have been around a while, we know that we've seen some difficulties with metropolitan districts in the past. There have been a lot of protections that have been put in place since then. So anything that applies to local governments applies to these districts. So all of the open meetings laws relative to notice and holding meetings and being open to the public, that all applies to us. The Open Records Act, again, if we get CORA requests, those types of things, all of those things apply to the district. Everything the district does, open to the public, just like you guys. The election code. When we run elections, everything will be done under the election code of 1992. There's some supplemental provisions in Title 32, but again, same things apply. Local government audit and budget laws, we have to comply with those. So annually, we do budgets, we certify mill levies, and annually, to the extent we meet those thresholds, the district will be required to perform an audit while it is required. When an audit isn't required because they haven't quite met the threshold, we at least need to do an exemption and file that. So all of that must be complied with. Disclosure and notification. This is actually a little bit new. I'm sure you're all familiar with the disclosure requirements in purchase and sale agreements. It's like a paragraph of bolding caps, and you're in a special district, and it really doesn't help. So over the last several years, there have been new requirements relative to actually recording a notice on all property within the district, so that not only you're going to see it in your purchase and sale agreement, but there's a separate notice that we have to record on all property that says, no, really, you're in a district, here's what it's called, here's what it can do, here's its debt limits, here's its mill levy limits, here's the fees, and here's who you can call when you have a question. So that gets recorded against the property. So anyone coming in will get that as a part of their title work. In addition to that, because of all the filing requirements, you can go to the Division of Local Government, you can go to the State Auditor's Office, but that's a good, you're buying property, get the title work, that will show up. And anything that would be a major modification to the service plan, we'd have to come back to you. So if we're seeking a change in the debt limit, a change in our ability to impose fees, a change in anything major, we have to come back to you. And that's a statutory requirement, and it says it in your service plan. So let's see. So in addition to those are all statutory things. In addition to that, in your service plan document, we've included an annual requirement to file a report with you. So that will contain additional information on the activities of the district. It will talk about agreements that they've entered into, construction activities, budget information, election information. All of that will be provided directly to the city on an annual basis. We talked about the notice to buyers. We'll have one recorded against the property. We also commit in the service plan that the district will work with the developers in the community to hand out that disclosure and make sure that that communication is there. So we've got multiple levels of providing that. And we talked about the recordation of that notice as well. So that will all be there. So, into the nitty-gritty of what's in a service plan. We've included a maximum debt issuance limit. That is based upon, with the help of another consultant who I'll introduce you to, Zach Bishop with D.A. Davidson, someone who works directly in financing all day, based upon mill levy limits and the anticipated use of the property with the residences. We've anticipated that that is a reasonable limit of debt with a cushion to anticipate inflation and interest rate increases and all of that over time, that the district would be able to support through its issuance of bonds. To the extent the district wants to issue more than that, we'd have to come back to you. We've included a debt service mill levy limit of 50 mills. It is subject to statutory adjustment. As you know, we've got assessment ratios that can be adjusted by the legislature. So the only allowance for adjustment relative to that mill levy limit is if the legislature makes a change, we're allowed to adjust the district's mill levy so that we remain revenue neutral. So it's not an increase necessarily or a decrease. It's so that we get, depending on what the legislature does, the same amount of revenue that we otherwise would have, but not in excess of 50 mills. It's important to know the city will never be responsible for district debt. It's a district obligation. Those kinds of statements are made in any issuance document. It's abundantly clear and released to investors that this is a district debt. The district is the government responsible for it, and so the city will never be responsible for anything the district does relative to that debt issuance. All debt needs to be issued in compliance with TABOR, just like any other local government entity. The district will hold elections to authorize imposition of taxes and increasing of mill levies for debt. So everything needs to be done in accordance with TABOR. And as an additional requirement and safeguard, we also have a requirement with certain issuances of debt that the district needs to receive a certification from an external financial advisor to say market rates are these are reasonable rates, that the terms of the deal are reasonable, and so the district can move forward with that. Operations and maintenance, as Doug mentioned, an important component of this is the district builds the public infrastructure. Who takes care of it? To the extent the infrastructure is not transferred to another entity, meaning in the area, for instance, we've got East Lakewood Sanitation District that we've been working closely with, is a sanitation provider in the area. But it's anticipated the district will actually construct the improvements and convey it to East Lakewood Sanitation. For improvements where that won't happen, which would be the more internal streets and trails and, the more internal improvements, we need someone that can take care of those things long term. It's proposed the district will do that through its operations and maintenance mill levy. So to that end, the district does anticipate imposing that mill levy to offset those costs. Additionally, Doug mentioned covenant control. We also need assistance in covenant control within the community to maintain those policies and guidelines relative to use of the property. The district statutorily and through its service plan will be authorized to do that as well. So there's a mechanism perpetually for the owners within the district who get to participate in that process as they move in to have some say in what happens in their community. And again, as we mentioned, the district does have the authority to impose fees for that purpose as well. So how to make the decision. The statute actually sets forth criteria relative to organization of the district, and we've put up here the criteria that's stated in the statute relative to that. There needs to be sufficient existing and projected need for the services. As Doug mentioned, and I think you've all been through in the planning process, this has been identified as a critical to the city's long-range strategic planning, and this will help implement it. So the need has been found over the last several years. Existing services inadequate. Again, without necessary public infrastructure, the project can't move forward. So, and there are the services that the district will install obviously aren't available today. So district is necessary to get that infrastructure in. The district is capable of providing economical and sufficient service. The capital plan, the financial plan, both included as exhibits to the service plan, set forth the costs associated with both operation and maintenance and of the improvements. The finance plan reviews the level of the mill levies that's needed to support that debt, and we can see that they support each other. And so we feel that that criteria has been met. Finally, and related to that the district has the financial ability to discharge the proposed indebtedness on a reasonable basis. For the same reasoning above, without the contribution of district revenues, total costs would make the development not economically viable. But with the level of mills, with the anticipated contribution for those public improvements, and with mill levy caps, the finance plan shows that the district will have the ability to discharge that debt. So that's why we're here today. I would say I'm happy to answer any service plan questions. We do have Zach Bishop with D.A. Davidson to the extent there's finance plan specific questions, but we're here to answer any of them.
Great. Thank you very much, and
Thank
I'm
you.
sure there might be a couple.
Okay.
Thank you for your presentation. All right, and Mr. Wilson from the City of Lakewood, good evening. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Paul and members of the Lakewood City Council. My name is Stephen Wilson. I'm a staff planner with the City of Lakewood, and I'm here this evening to present a staff report for the Sheridan Station West Metropolitan District. It's case PL 16001. As you heard from the applicant, the request is to approve the service plan, which will allow the applicant and his partners, Doug Alenowitz with TBP Sheridan LLC, to pursue the formation of a metropolitan district. And as Ms. Becker described in more detail, a metropolitan district is a type of Title 32 special district. It provides two or more services that are allowed to be provided by special districts, and it's an entity that can be used to fund a wide range of infrastructure improvements. There are existing metropolitan districts in the city of Lakewood. Examples include Denver West, Indiana Valley, Lena Gulch, Fossil Ridge, and the Plaza, which is at Belmar. The broader category are special districts, and those exist in the city of Lakewood as well, including West Metro Fire Protection District and approximately 25 water and sewer districts. Also, in comparison, there are metropolitan districts in other municipalities. So staff did an analysis of the Colorado Information Marketplace data, and up on the screen there you see a comparison to other municipalities. And I'll just pick a couple of them out. So as you can see, in Arvada they have 14 metropolitan districts, and those are similar to what's being proposed tonight. Denver, a bigger municipality, has 33. Lakewood has 12, which is an adjustment based on analysis of this data. And then Littleton has 6. The map in the corner shows the metropolitan districts spread out throughout the Front Range. So, you may have the question, why use metropolitan districts? And I'll be quick because this was partially covered in the applicant's presentation. But it generates an independent source of revenue to finance the cost of constructing, owning, and maintaining public improvements. It enables communities to address local infrastructure needs while allocating the cost to those who directly benefit. And it can provide an opportunity for perpetual operation and maintenance of public improvements. The service plan, which is what you're considering tonight, is the document that establishes and limits the purpose of the Metropolitan District as well as its financial constraints. And it's the document that must have City Council approval before a district can proceed to an organizational election. Metropolitan districts have some municipal oversight. So at the time of service plan review, which is tonight, cities can limit activities, limit borrowing, or limit maximum tax rate. Once formed, special districts function as independent quasi-governmental entities. However, cities can require annual reports, which was mentioned by the applicant, review of financial information every 5 years, and then also as mentioned by the applicant, the city approval is required when there are major modifications to service plans. and major modifications are listed through example in the Colorado Revised Statutes. Also, as you saw in the applicant's presentation, there's an initial district boundary area and then an inclusion area. And I did want to add that there was a pre-planning application by the applicant. And I wanted to show this. We're not here tonight to review this application or to review the site plan, but I did want to give an indication of what was submitted with the pre-planning application. And the things that are significant about this is the connection of Depew Street, that would be a public street, a series of internal streets, and then the infrastructure that would be required for that phase one. And in this phase one proposal, it was for sale fee simple lot townhomes. So based on the applicant's submittal, the service plan was referred to separate divisions within the city, and review was conducted by staff. The review process included a series of questions and comments that resulted in minor revisions to the service plan. And the final service plan was included with your packet that was sent to you a couple weeks ago. The Lakewood Public Works has confirmed that the public improvements are necessary. The extent of the improvements is typical and the plan is reasonable. The Lakewood Finance Department has determined that the proposed financial plan is fair and reasonable. And the city attorney has found that the applicant is following the process that's defined in the Colorado Revised Statutes. Planning staff has determined that the request is supported by both the comprehensive plan and the Sheridan Station 20-minute neighborhood plan. There are no zoning ordinances that apply to metropolitan districts. And then as you saw earlier in the applicant's presentation, they provided information on the mill levy cap, the debt, maximum debt or debt cap, notice to buyers, and then also reporting to the city. So also you saw summarized, and I have it condensed a little bit more, but there are specific review criteria that come from the Colorado Revised Statutes. So the first is that there's existing need for service in the area. The second review criteria is that there's existing service, that the existing service in the area is inadequate. And third, that the proposed district is capable of providing economical and sufficient service. And then fourth, that the area and the proposed metropolitan district has the financial ability to discharge the proposed debt. So staff findings are that the service plan contains the items that are required by the Colorado Revised Statutes. Allowing the formation of a metropolitan district will further the city's goals of fostering a catalytic project near the Sheridan Station, and there is sufficient existing and projected need for organized service in the area, and the existing services in the district's area are inadequate for present and projected needs. And the proposed special district is capable of providing economical and sufficient service to the area within its proposed boundaries. And then lastly, the area to be included in the metropolitan district has or will have the financial ability to discharge the debt. Therefore, it's staff's recommendation that City Council approve the service camp plan, it's the case PL 16001, to allow the applicant to pursue the formation of the Sheridan Station West Metropolitan District. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the presentation. I will now open the public comment period. And again, the same rules apply. 3 minutes. You'll glow green until 2 minutes, 30 seconds, yellow for the last 30, and when it's red, I will politely try to wrap you up. And it looks like the folks who signed up kind of know these rules. Two Creeks is here in force. Miss Kathy Hosford, you are up first. And it looks like you all would like to. Okay. Welcome. Good evening. How kind of you to do that.
We're appearing, the four of us are appearing at one time so that we can say it once, not 4 times, and bore you. I'm Kathy Hosford. I am a board member to the Two Creeks Neighborhood Organization and a resident of the neighborhood.
Maddie Nichols. I'm a co-chair of the Two Creeks neighborhood, and I live at 5800 West 8th Avenue in the neighborhood.
Susan McConnell at 895 Benton Street on the board of Two Creeks.
And I'm Barbara Birch. I live at 6150 West 13th Avenue, right across from Lamar Station. And I'm also on the Two Creeks board.
We're just here to say, well, we support this. We need this metropolitan district in order for this development to go forward. And we are really looking forward to it. The good thing is that it puts in the infrastructure that is not existent at this point. It will deal with continuing long-term care of this new neighborhood that'll be attached to ours. And that's what's the important part. Is the long-term care. One of the things I'd like to...
Mic closer.
One of the things I would like to say is that what is happening here shows that when a developer comes into an area and works with the neighborhood organization or the neighborhood's residents, that things can be accomplished, and it can be accomplished with a very positive outcome. So we hope for your vote to approve this district and get this show on the road. So thank you.
All right. Thank you, Two Creeks. And you left time on the clock even. All right. Anybody else in chambers wish to speak? Mr. Marino, come on down. Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. I'm Bill Marino. I'm here today to speak on behalf of the Lakewood West Colfax Business Improvement District, the West Colfax Community Association, and 40 West Arts District. West Colfax Community Association kind of encompasses the entire section of West Colfax in Lakewood. We even have some members that are in Denver. The Business Improvement District stretches from Depew to Welch, but our service area actually extends to Sheridan. And then, as you know, 40 West Arts is a subset of all that, right in the core of the district. And by the way, thank you so much for your support for West Colfax Mural Fest. It was a great success this past weekend. All the neighborhoods were involved. Many of you were there and volunteered, so thank you. But back to the business of the day. We certainly support this applicant. And we invested in this process as well, along with the city, with the ULI TAP study several years ago, where we contributed to talking about this area, because we thought the market forces might take decades before something positive would happen there. And to see this happening with this sort of vision, I think 3 or 4 years since that TAP study, really is a dream come true for the corridor. So I echo a lot of what the Two Creeks neighborhood had to say. So we strongly support this by having invested in the ULI TAP study. In the way they went about this process, they came and talked to all of us, the neighborhood first, the business association, the business improvement district, and just wanted to collaborate and listen. So we're very, very grateful for that. And then finally, this Metro District tool it was really one of the recommendations that came out of the TAP study. The experts that were deployed by the ULI said it would take collaboration of this magnitude to allow a developer to use those tools specifically the two reasons that the applicant mentioned, with respect to infrastructure and financing, et cetera. So I applaud their vision, and I applaud their collaboration, and I hope you'll support them. Thanks so much.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else in chambers? Seeing none, I will close public comment. And let's start with questions from the council. Mr. Coop.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm not sure who will answer these questions. Okay. The first one is about the inclusion area. Okay. Come on down. Are we, Mayor? Are we doing this? We're just doing just questions in general? Okay. Okay, come on. Well, there is the initial, and then there's the inclusionary. Why is it separated?
It's to anticipate the phasing, essentially. The initial boundaries are anticipated with the first phase, and so we want to make sure the financing occurs with that. It also has to do with ownership. We want to ensure that if anyone in the inclusion area wants to come in, that they're part of that process. So they cannot be included without petitioning the district board. So when the second phase is anticipated to occur, it's a statutory process, but it's not a very difficult process, and it allows them to say with the petition, as an owner of property, we want to come in and be part of this and receive the benefits so improvements can be extended to serve us.
Okay. Is it safe to assume that the applicants will be the owners of this inclusionary area when it comes time to be included?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. So that's.
Let's put it this way: if we don't own it, it
Okay. So really, there's no chance that this area is not going to be included and not have the infrastructure put into it.
That's
correct.
Okay. Thank you. One more. Okay. In our documents up here, I'm not sure how it's numbered somewhere else. It's page 4 of 6 under staff analysis. Right. There is some wording here, which, of course, now that I need it, I can't find it. So the district would finance and construct and, in some instances, maintain and operate certain water, sewer, street, drainage, and open space infrastructure. Can you explain that to me in some cases? Because that makes it sound like, hey, the city's going to have to pay for this somewhere down the road.
Yeah, no, that's not the intent of that language. The intent of that language is what I mentioned in the presentation. There's certain of the improvements, like the sanitation improvements, that the district will finance and construct, but ultimately give to other entities that accept them. So the example I used was East Lakewood. We anticipate the district will enter into an agreement with East Lakewood where the district will finance and construct in accordance with their rules and regulations and policies, and the district will finance, but will ultimately transfer those improvements for perpetual maintenance to East Lakewood. So in certain circumstances, that applies. The district will not be maintaining the improvements it otherwise transfers. That's all that's intended to address.
But they will be paying for.
They will be paying. The debt service mill levy and the bonds issued will still support the financing and construction of that. And the residents of the district will be paying whatever the applicable fees are of those entities. So yes, it's incorporated as a part of the overall provision of those improvements.
Okay, anywhere in any of these listed, is the city of Lakewood at the end of that? Are they going to be?
Doug, I might ask you to.
I think to the only example that I'm aware of currently.
Okay, can you go ahead and speak into the microphone?
Actually, I think it's on here. The Depew Street is a city standard, anticipated city-owned right-of-way. The streets, the private streets in the balance of that project are not. Those are privately owned, or those are privately owned streets owned and maintained by the district. That Depew Street is probably the sole example that I can think of. But again, in this case, the district would pay for the construction of that through its financing powers, and ultimately, at the right time, it would be conveyed into municipal ownership.
Great. Thank you very much. That's all I have at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Abel.
I have a laundry list of questions. Perhaps if other council people go ahead, it will whittle them down. Councilman Coop just asked a couple of questions that were on my list. So,
thank you, sir. We'll keep going.
Councilor
Harrison.
Thank you. A great project, and I'm very excited to see things go. I have a couple of questions about the cost per unit, the taxation. Could you kind of go through how that's going to work? How's it going to appear on their tax statements? Could someone? The numbers guy.
Yeah, Councilor Harrison. My name is Zach Bishop. I'm with a firm called D.A. Davidson, and so I'm part of a group that specializes in financing for metropolitan districts. So the taxes appear on the tax bill as a taxing entity, just like the school district, the city, the county, any other of those overlapping taxing entities. The way that the property taxes are calculated is also the same way that other taxes are calculated for residential property. So just to take an example, if you had 40 mills on a residential property and that property were let's say $200,000 unit, you would take the $200,000 and multiply that times the residential assessment ratio, which is 7.96% currently, and then times 40 mills, which is 4%, 0.04.
Okay, I'm really bad at math, so
Yeah.
can we get to the number?
Do the number? Yeah.
Do the number.
We can do the math, yep. Sure. I realize that's a low unit price, but it just by
And I would
way-
assume these might be a little bit more than 200,000.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what, 3, 4 is
the
that
average
kinda?
unit price, I think, is 3.
I was somewhat anticipating this question, so
thought you
I'm
might.
not quite as quick as he is with it, but I did try to look at that previously. With the proposed combined mill levy between capital and O&M, the capital at 40 and the O&M at 20, we're estimating, and the exercise I ran was $265 a square foot. So in the case of a townhome, as an example, a $344,000 townhome, let's say, as an example, that would be $137 a month. By way of comparison, it's quite common for HOAs and other vehicles around here to be well in excess of those kinds of dollars.
Okay, thank you. May I keep going down my dollar list here? Yeah, I think stay up here. I've heard horror stories about districts, and one of the issues that I am very concerned about is what happens if the money doesn't, the units don't sell, and we're waiting. What happens then? Who's on the hook?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the early 90s, as Megan mentioned, there were some pretty significant changes to the statutes to protect two different groups of people. One are the homeowners within the district that in some cases prior to the early 90s were exposed to very high levels of taxation because of just what you mentioned. You'd have a 1,000-unit subdivision where 100 homes were developed, and so they had 10 times the tax burden that they were expecting. So to solve that problem, we have a mill levy cap requirement in the statute, but also in the service plan here. You've got a 50 mil cap on debt. So if the entire project, the project begins, but only 10, 20% of it builds out, residents are only exposed to the 50 mils for debt maximum. It's anticipated to be 40 mils, plus the operations and maintenance levy, which is a relatively small portion of the total. So there are protections in place to protect the residents. There are also some protections in the statute to protect the investors of the bonds who, prior to the early 90s, were folks that were not necessarily understanding the credits that they were buying and some of the risks they were taking. But that's, I think, a separate matter from what you're questioning.
And due to bankruptcy, would there ever be any financial responsibility fall back on the city?
No. I mean, the short answer is no.
Okay, that's all I can think. I've got more, but we'll keep going. Thank you.
Councilor Roybal?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm going to give you a few questions, and then I'll kind of reserve my other questions down the road to give the other councilors some more time to ask their questions. Just a quick clarification. If you can give me an update, said one of your plans said safety, public safety. What is your definition of public safety? What does that mean? Are you going to have your own police department?
No, that's actually a statutory criteria, and it's defined in the statute as safety protection improvements. That relates to signage and lighting. So it's stop signs, it's stop lights, it's crosswalks, it's protection associated with the public improvements being installed. So it is not police, it's not fire, it's associated with the improvements going in.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Now, moving right along, when construction starts, who are you accountable to as far as getting the permits, getting the variance, getting everything in place? Once you form to become a special district, you're your own entity, so you make your own rules. Are you still accountable to the city for those particular permits?
That's a great question. The answer is the district is subject to all of the same requirements as any other entity or individual building within the city. Since you are a governing jurisdiction, the district and all of its contractors needs to comply with your standards and the standards of any other entity that applies. So East Lakewood and CDOT and any jurisdiction that overlaps, the district still must comply with those. Okay. So they'll be coming forward for permits and approvals.
Traffic impact. I noticed here on your diagram, the only entrance and exit seems to be Depew Street. Is that correct?
Yeah, on the concept plan for the initial area, there are a number of private streets that provide the circulation, and the primary throughway is a proposed extension of Depew Street between 10th and 11th.
So that your answer would be that would be the only entrance and exit in that area?
Yes, I guess
okay.
that would be yes.
So if I do my math right, and I'm asking a question, is that I heard you say that there was going to be in this phase 136 units, okay? And we figure an average of 2.5 cars per unit. Okay, we'll just say two cars per unit in that 10th Avenue around Depew Street. The 10th Avenue and Depew Street is not very wide. It's actually pretty close. And on one side of it or the other, you have the ditch water. And so there is no sidewalks along that entire area. Is there any plans to put in sidewalks, improve the streets in that area coming in and out of that area?
Terrific question. I'm glad you asked that. Yes. Expected in this plan is we are currently holding budget in that plan of finance for the north side of West 10th Avenue to provide the extended right-of-way that's been contemplated in city documents, as well as bike lanes, curb gutter, detached sidewalk, and a tree lawn. What
about the south side of 10th Avenue?
The south side of 10th Avenue I can't speak to. I think that's been held in the city CIP, but I'm not in a position to be able to answer that. Perhaps there's somebody from the planning department or public works department, but I don't know that was something contemplated tonight.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll defer to other councilors.
Yeah. If I can close on one point though, there is the expectation, and I think it speaks to the previous question, is we are required and are going through a complete and thorough planning and permitting process with the city of Lakewood. There's no exceptions to that for this project.
Yeah, okay. And just to build on that, your approval of this document tonight does nothing to alleviate any of those requirements. What stands as a requirement tonight before approval will stand as a requirement after approval relative to all of determining connections and those types of things.
Okay. One more question, Mayor, if you please give me a little latitude. Okay, you talked about having, what was it, 10.72 acres to be developed, and you had a small parcel to the west and to the south of the project. Is that in the plan? And my question to phase 2 is, would that be into your area? is that going into your area?
If it's the farthest west and south
Yeah.
corner of the project, that is in the future inclusion area. So it would be able to be included in the future. It's not part of the initial phase.
Okay, so the answer is no now. And then to the east, where we have other units that are there, but we have a kind of it's a weird little area because we have a sister city that owns a little bit of property there. Have you been communicating with them with your wishes or development?
If you're, I believe you may be making reference to a property that is east of Denver-owned property. The Tetris piece right there.
Right.
I don't know.
The yellow piece.
That one right there. Very early on we had a conversation. There's a lack of continuity or any nexus, from connections to what's happening around here. We can solve many problems in many challenges for development in this area, but that parcel is dissociated from what's happening right here. So right now it's not contemplated for participation or inclusion in this exercise.
If I could add on that, though, we have sent notice. One of the requirements relative to organization, a bunch of notice requirements, and one of them is to send notice to potentially interested entities within a 3-mile radius. So clearly that would include any entities in that area.
And just so we're clear that 10th Avenue, are you going to do any improvements on the 10th Avenue street itself? Because we have added, if you take 2.5 cars per unit, 136 units, that's over 340 cars that are running back and forth in the morning and then in the evening, and that area is going to get totally congested.
So I can speak again to what we've been told as a requirement in the planning process relative to the improvements on 10th Avenue, which includes widening curb, gutter, sidewalk, bike lane, detached tree lawn, some very desperately sought after improvements. Without getting into a deep esoteric exercise on planning principles, one of our goals in this development is a walkable, transit-oriented development, and the ideology of trying to drive vehicular traffic is something we are actually trying to limit, understanding that people's behaviors are what they are. So most importantly, though, to the heart of your question is a requirement for a traffic engineering study, which is underway.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All I have for now.
And I think it'd be good, this is a TOD site, so we're not exactly sure if the 2.5 per vehicle would apply to these units, and essentially you're still required to do any of the improvements. And just a quick question for Tim Cox, is that something within the consideration of this decision? It sounds like they already have the zoning by right to do this sort of project, so they could do this without, if it was possible, they could do this on their own, not subject to these certain requirements or these types of questions.
Right. I'm not sure that it certainly fits the project, but I'm not sure that it fits any of the criteria that are on the table tonight.
Okay. Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Thank you. So the bottom line is that Lakewood would provide the policing in this area. Okay. I haven't heard any language regarding schools. What is happening with that?
The organization of the district changes nothing relative to school overlay. So whichever boundary, and do you remember which school district? Nothing changes that.
Jeffco, Mohom.
Yeah. So this does nothing to change the boundaries of any school district. It just remains part of.
If I could add a couple of clarifications for this question and the previous. So as part of, independently from the Metro District, when they come in for a plat, then the school and parkland fees will be collected at the time of that subdivision plat. And then independently from the Metro District, the public improvements on West 10th Avenue would be required independently of the Metro District. So if it was approved or not approved, it would be the same public improvements and the same school and parkland fees.
It would be the same schools that are already in place. Is that what you said? At one point, when large developments like this happened, there were requirements that land was given for schools. Has that, I guess that's gone by the wayside, is that right?
No, what we do is in lieu of land, sometimes when projects are big enough, it makes sense to dedicate land for the actual school. But when there are existing schools, we have an agreement with Jefferson County Schools where we collect school and parkland fees. And so they'll pay school and parkland fees per unit, and then the school fees will go to Jefferson County for their improvement or maintenance of their existing schools.
Okay, so then Mulholland would need to perhaps expand, and that's where the money would come from. Okay. Getting back to that southwest corner, and perhaps you've already answered this, part of this document gives eminent domain authority. Has there been any conversation regarding that piece of land and use of eminent domain?
You may want to, I can answer that as no, and there is no expectation of use of eminent domain for the acquisition of land that is outside of these district boundaries, and you may want to speak to it from a more technical statutory standpoint.
Sure. The only reason the district would need to utilize eminent domain authority is if for installation of a specific public infrastructure component, they were unable to acquire an interest in property. So it would not just be to acquire property. We need to have the public purpose with the identified improvement and not otherwise able to obtain it. So the basic answer is no, and we don't anticipate it.
Through the City of Lakewood permitting process. So
Right.
This isn't a,
Yeah.
gee, we want to put it there,
Yeah.
so go ahead
No.
and do it. It's not that kind of power.
Yeah, it's in accordance with any approved plans.
Okay. On page 4, about a little more than halfway down, it says approval of this service plan by the city does not imply approval of the development of a specific area within the district, nor does it imply approval of the number of residential units or the total site floor area of commercial or industrial buildings. So right now you're looking at 136 units. So it's possible that that really isn't going to be what plays out in the end. Is that right? Based on this language.
Well, I think that what that's really highlighting is this is a mechanism and a tool specific to statutory district requirements. It is not a planning tool. It is not an entitlement tool. Those are powers that reside solely with the City of Lakewood.
Okay. On page 5, a little more than halfway down, it says it is anticipated that stormwater improvements will be owned and maintained by the city or the district. That's kind of loose language when it says anticipated.
Again, this would the district would only not maintain to the extent someone else accepts. So presumably, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Doug, if West 10th Avenue, or is it Depew? It's Depew that is the major thoroughfare.
Yes.
Yeah. If there were underlying improvements along with the Depew connection that ultimately the city took, then the district would not maintain those because we wouldn't need the overlap of service. But to the extent any improvements are not accepted by the city or another governmental entity, the district will be obligated to maintain them because they will have constructed and financed them.
Yeah, maybe a different way to come at that same question is the service plan anticipates that unless somebody else voluntarily takes it over, the district will own and maintain it.
Okay. On page 7, the next to last item, It says all streets and safety protection facilities to be dedicated to the city will be constructed in accordance with the standards and specifications of the city. Could you please talk a little bit about enforcement of that?
You don't have page 7. Again, it goes to the fact that this is an authorizing document, that the development and planning tools and requirements of the city remain with the city, and the district must comply. So any of those street improvements, and again, when we're talking about Depew, particularly improvements that the city may accept for maintenance, must comply with all of your regulations. So it's that bottom line. We're not making up our own regulations. We're complying with what the city's requirements are.
If I could add an example to that. So Depew Street is the street that's contemplated to be dedicated to the city. And so with their review application, they'll have to submit engineering plans that will be reviewed by the Lakewood project engineer. And that street will have to be designed and built to city standards before it could be dedicated and accepted by the city.
Okay. On page 9 at the top, it talks about inclusion limitation. The district shall have the authority to include within its boundaries any property within the service area without the prior written consent of the city. Could you please address that?
That simply recognizes the fact that we've got the two segregated areas. We've got the initial boundaries, which we're starting with, and then we've got the two Tetris pieces to the southwest and to the east that, again, only if the property owner of 100% of that property petitions to the district will it come in. And it recognizes the fact that we don't need to come back for a public hearing in front of you for that to happen, that the district can handle that at its level rather than coming back. But again, only for that property.
Okay. And then on page 13, under annual report, it says the district shall be responsible for submitting an annual report to the city clerk no later than September the 1st of each year for the year ending the preceding December 31st. The city may, in its sole discretion, waive the requirement in whole or in part. I would not want to see that may in there. The annual report should and will happen on a yearly basis, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the intent of that statement is to say we will file it unless you tell us we don't have to. This is mandatory for us.
Okay, that's all for now. Thank you.
Councilor Abel.
Thank you. I'm in favor of this project, and I've been impressed with Mr. Olenowitz. But I do have a number of questions about this plan. Apparently, it was in the works before we considered the rezoning, and I think that fact might have been important for us to know when the property was rezoned. We have, I believe, Mr. Wilson, 20 these are Title 32, Article 1 districts, and I believe we have 20 of those already in Lakewood.
In terms of metropolitan districts, there are...
in terms of Article 1 metropolitan districts. Developer-initiated districts.
So correct. I believe we have 12.
No, sir. You listed 12, but some of those, like Fossil Ridge, has 3 metro districts. So that's 15. And when you take all of those in aggregate, you get 20, not 13, not 12. So
I understand your question. So in that analysis slide, for all of the metro districts that were counted, where there were multiple metro districts, they were counted as one. So in Aurora, for example, they have some metro districts that are Metro District 1 through 15. I counted those as one, and so you're correct. In the city of Lakewood, where we had some of like the Plaza, Metro Districts 1 through 3, I counted that as one. So I did that consistently across the count.
So the actual count is 20, not 12. Fossil Ridge, for instance, has 3 metro districts, Fossil Ridge number 1, number 2, and number 3, and they're all responsible for different functions.
Yes.
So there are 20, not 13. Thank you.
Point of order on that. Is there a question on that?
Pardon?
Is there a question pertaining to this issue on that?
I was trying to determine the actual number of metro districts actually in Lakewood, and I got the answer. It is 20.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, where was I? The Department of Local Affairs says that these districts are to be formed when local governments, municipalities or counties, cities and towns don't have adequate infrastructure. Now, you're being served by a sewer district, and one of the plans is to provide that sort of service. Is it that the infrastructure in place now is not adequate to handle 130 townhomes?
Yes, that is true. The infrastructure that is in place right now is inadequate to handle 130 townhomes. The infrastructure that is in place right now is inadequate to handle most new development in this area.
So it's not that we're going to be paying for delivery of services from the existing infrastructure, or not us, but your metro district, wouldn't be paying for the provision of internal water lines and sewer lines coming out. It would be to enhance the infrastructure that's already in place.
If I'm following your question accurately, I think it would probably be both, which is the public infrastructure that's necessary to serve any of the homes that ultimately would be built and sold there. From behind, I'm not sure what the appropriate term of art is, but from behind the infrastructure that would ordinarily be owned in the either by a district or a city or otherwise. In the case of East Lakewood Sand, it too is a district, right? The stuff that goes from, call it that, municipal, governmental, public ownership to the private home is going to be just like any other home and privately owned.
And most developers pay for those in their...
the costs of development are passed on to the price of the homes.
Exactly. And in this case, that brings up a question I was going to ask later, but it was stated that these disclosures would be made in the contract. Will they be highlighted? Will homeowners be alerted to this fact that their upfront costs are smaller, but their tail-end costs will be higher? Or is it just going to be in a packet of papers?
No, it's the form. Our goal in recording it and including it in the contracts and being here and forthright, there's no hide the P. This is a mechanism to try to deliver the vision, the outcomes that we've been after, and it's our expectation to notify homeowners.
Thank you. The $7.2 million cap, is that for the initial service area? Would that include all of the eventual service area?
That's based on the capacity for the entire area.
For the entire area. So if you don't build out, if you don't do the entire 10 acres, would it be safe to assume it would be close to half of that cost as a cap, or could you still use that cap for the initial service area?
Yeah, it may be an underwriting kind of question.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so I think the service plan debt limit would still be $7.25 million.
Even if it were for the only for the initial 136 townhomes.
Correct, but the actual financial capacity of the district is always governed by the amount of revenue that can be generated at 50 mils, up to 50 mils.
But
which
that
on 136 homes, is much less than $7 million.
Certainly, but that 50 mils could be extended way out into the future for those 136 homes. If the $7.2 million burden is shared by fewer people, that 50 mils would have a longer service life?
30-year bonds. Yeah, I mean, there's a restriction against bonds that have a term of longer than 30 years. And so there would not be the ability to do a 100-year bond or some.
Okay, so that couldn't be extended past 30 years. And if the $7.2 million wasn't paid off at 50 mils per unit, then the rest of it would just go away.
There are a lot of technicalities associated with that. There are opportunities, just like the city does, for refinancing and restructuring, but that would be left up, pardon me, to the homeowners and the board members associated with that. The initial capacity will be based upon build-out. No matter what, we've got the mill levy cap. It will only generate a certain amount of revenue based upon the value in the mill levy cap. And with that, you're going to have owners that come in. So depending, just like with any governing board, it does give some flexibility for that board ultimately to determine if it makes sense to refinance and extend the term because there'll be some cost savings or efficiencies. So there aren't specific limits on that, but it's kind of self-governed when the residents come in and join the board.
But when the residents come in and join the board, the $7.2 million has already been spent, and they'll have no say in that. They'll only be able to decide, are we going to pay it all in 10 years, or are we going to pay it all in 30 years, or do we extend it past that?
Well, and we'll only be able to issue what can be supported with the 50 mils. So if we don't have enough homes throughout the full development, the district will not be able to issue that full amount. It will be based upon who's there and how many homes are there. So if development has stopped some portion of the way, the market won't support an issuance of more than what can be generated. And Zach can probably say that more eloquently than I can. But
yeah, when does the $7.2 million get spent?
Well, throughout the phasing. I don't know if we have a concept of how quickly it gets spent.
Yeah. I think at the heart of your original question, while I probably think about it more in the way that you do than the technical answers they were giving, but the answer is yes. If there's not the prospect of the homes being there, we will not have the ability to issue debt to that amount. No. And to your point, I don't know whether it's half or 2/3 or a third, or but it will be less because that's all that we could be able to point to as homes that will ultimately have assessed values to be able to support the bond. So that's one question. You asked a second question about when do you spend $7.2 million. We're going to be spending a lot of money out there in the project. This is recovering a minor portion of the overall project expense.
I understand that. My question is, when is this $7.2 million we're specifically talking about? If it's spent on the front end, then the folks who come later and assume the role of directors still have the $7.2 million to amortize.
They'll only be able to amortize the mill levy associated with the amounts associated with the 50 mil cap. So what would happen in that case if the 7.2 got spent by us, in that the mill levy didn't get realized, then we as the developer would not get any kind of recovery on that. It would not be left to burden those homeowners. They're protected by the mill. It's the developer that's exposed. It's really call it a cost recovery mechanism that allows us to be able to finance that infrastructure over time.
Thank you. And the numbers guy, $7.2 million among 136 homes would be how much per home?
Well, yeah, if that situation were actually to occur, that number is $53,300 per
unit.
Right.
An additional in long range cost.
Right.
Okay. And the operation and maintenance part of it can be looked at as the $170 a month, similar to HOA kind of operation, but it won't be an HOA, it'll be a government. There was something in this document that refers to an enclave. If property becomes an enclave, it can be assimilated into the district. Am I imagining that?
I'm not sure where that comes from.
I'm not either. One of the problems with having everything digitally is you cannot underline and highlight, and you have to flip through about 50 screens.
Notes are important.
Thank you.
Relative to the district, I can't think of what the applicability of that would be.
There it is. On page 9, item H, it refers to, and again, flipping through these pages, it refers to city approval of, how does it put it, a departure from the plan would have to be approved by the city. And it doesn't specifically say city council, although it does say such approval may be evidenced by any instrument executed by the city's manager, city's attorney, or other specifically designated representative of city council. Mr. Cox, does that mean that you folks would be able to do that after city council approval or without city council approval?
Pardon me, I've just located that paragraph and I'm reading the rest of it here. This does refer to, one of the oversight responsibilities that the city retains is to hear proposed major modifications to the service plan, and the statute lists examples of that. So this is sort of the flip side. If there's not a major modification, but a modification to the plan, which is not considered material, which is sort of interchangeably used with major, it says that the district may seek formal approval from the city. My understanding is you don't have to seek city approval of minor modifications or non-material modifications through any formal process. It's not clear to me why the district might elect to do that, but maybe you can explain.
Yeah, and the term material modification is a statutory provision as well. So anything related to our mill levy limits, the debt limits, the authority to issue bonds, those things are material. They're listed statutorily to say anything that rises to that level must come back and be heard essentially via the same process that this occurred. To the extent frankly, I can't think of any situation where those of us that have to give opinions on being in compliance with this would not bring forward to the city something we think is even slightly material. So those are the kinds of things that we would bring back through the city process.
The last sentence in H says, any determination by the city that a departure is not a material modification shall be conclusive and final, and shall bind all residents, property owners, and others affected by such departure. Can you tell me what would be a departure?
Again, from the perspective of me giving an opinion, I can't think of a situation that, we've got parameters in here. And I'm going to, as general counsel for the district, ensure that the district is in compliance with those parameters. If there's a parameter that is being pushed, we're going to ask the district to come back and be in front of you again to change that parameter. So I can't think of a situation here that, I would seek anything less than that.
I would defer then to our learned counsel, Mr. Cox. Mr. Cox, when it says that a determination by the city that a departure is not a material modification, that would be based on the statutes that Ms. Becker referred to.
Yes, I believe so. You see in the previous sentence, it talks about the district's activities are subject to the review by the city only insofar as they may deviate in a material manner from the requirements of the service plan. So up there it's deviate, and further down it's depart, which is a little softer. But I think that's the material modification section of the statute that we're talking about. Somebody has to make a determination as to the materiality of that deviation or departure from the service plan requirements.
So if it doesn't rise to the level of the things mentioned in statute, it would be a departure, and that determination would be made by our legal staff by comparing the proposed, quote, departure or deviation to what's in the statute.
Yes, this essentially gives the city the ability to make that call, because if you remember, the statute doesn't have a laundry list. It has sort of an including but not limited to list, so there is some room for that determination, and this gives the city the power to do that.
And when you say the city, who in the city? Will that be you, the city manager, the planning director?
The role of the city attorney would be to make a recommendation or offer advice on that point. I would think that under the circumstances, it would likely be the city manager who would have to make the determination as to whether it has to come to council or not, because that's ultimately what it comes down to. If it's material, it comes before you. If it's not, it doesn't have to.
Okay. Who owns the other 5 acres there?
It's under various ownership right now.
Okay, but it would more than likely be the owners of these individual homes we see here?
That currently own it? Yes, there's different ownership. There's some of that is larger parcels of land with out-of-state owners. I mean, there are a wide range of property ownership. Some of them are individual homeowners.
I take it the blue lines are property lines. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
That's correct.
You can see it better than I can, but yes.
Looks like it, yes.
There are 6 adjacent property owners on the east side. What happens if you...
They're parcels. Those aren't actually, they don't represent property
Okay,
owners.
parcels.
Yeah, correct.
What happens if you only get 4 parcels of the 6, or you only get 3 of the 6, or 1 of the 6? Can you adapt the proposed expansion area to fit whatever's available to you there?
Yes, that's how it would work, and that's why it's future inclusion subject to ownership and petition by 100% of the ownership in. So if we are unable or unsuccessful in acquiring the additional properties, the district would solely work within the boundaries of the ownership that we have.
Among the things I'm uncomfortable with is eminent domain. And I understand that your purpose in declaring that would be only to allow for improvements such as water lines, sewer lines, that sort of thing. Instead of condemnation, can you go with purchasing an easement? Because I have a ditch that an irrigation ditch that runs along an easement next to my property, and they paid for that. So
it can happen in any method if an easement's sufficient. We have to satisfy, a district has to satisfy the same criteria as a municipality or any other local government entity. And so we need to show public purpose and we need to show necessity. And if it's sufficient to get interest through an easement, then that's certainly something we would ask for.
So if it was not necessary, for instance, to run an easement along the west property line that's jagged around the house of, I believe that belongs to the lady who was one of the few opponents of this plan at rezoning. I believe we got a letter from her. Is that correct? Is this the property of the lady that said she moved there so she could farm?
I don't recall that, no.
Okay, well, anyway, if you don't get, is there any reason that you could avoid, or can you avoid putting utility lines through that property or through the properties to the west of you, so that if you don't own the property, you wouldn't be running water lines and sewer lines through somebody else's property just because you can by declaration?
Well, there is an ability, but again, it has to be approved plans, and we have to show the necessity and essentially that there is no better alternative.
Approved by whom?
Which portion? I'm sorry.
Well, you just said it would have to be an approved plan.
Meaning the infrastructure plans that go through the city process. So whatever is part of the infrastructure structure that's approved through the city to serve this property, to the extent it's shown as necessary for part of the overall system, then the district would have the ability to condemn for that. But again, part of that is knowing that there isn't an alternative. So if there's an alternative that makes sense and is reasonable, then we wouldn't be able to show necessity.
Okay, is that... Mr. Parker, you might be the person to answer this. Who would vet that claim of necessity? Sorry to make you work when you were relaxed.
It would be done as part of engineering review. So if we're talking about drainage system, for example, that's going to go through our standard engineering review, and they're going to determine the best and or alternative locations for any improvements. And they're going to have to ultimately sign off on the final.
So the applicant would have to prove to you or to the engineers that this is indeed a necessity, a last resort, only chance to get it there.
That's right.
And the burden of that proof would be a fairly high bar.
Absolutely. It would have to be a lack of other acceptable or practicable alternatives.
Park and recreation is one of the purposes. Parks and recreation is one of the purposes of the district. How do you intend to provide for that? It's one of your stated uses.
Yeah, in parks and recreation, again, that's a statutory category that kind of encompasses more than what it says. But Doug can speak more to specifics, but to the extent there's a trail system, there's landscaping improvements, there's, I don't know if we anticipate like internal little pocket parks or those kinds of things. It encompasses all of that.
Yeah, I didn't see any of those on the site plan, but I don't understand that that's not set in stone now either. I could probably go on a while, but I think folks in the audience are ready to be done, and I'm certain some of my council colleagues are ready for me to quit asking questions. So thank you. I think you've handled them all pretty well.
Councilor Vincent.
Thank you. Am I allowed to make a comment and then ask a clarifying question? Okay. My job up here is to make sure that the city is not on the hook for anything that could be, I guess a technical term is biffed up in the future. I think that was answered by Councilor Coop and a couple other people here, and that was very well clarified. So we aren't. Then the second thing that I was looking at on this was you have been here several times, et cetera. And there were questions that were asked by this council. And I wanted to make sure that those were addressed. And I've got to say, right up front, I think you did a good job about that. There were questions about the financials. There were questions about the infrastructure. There were how much we'd be on the hook for. And I don't think you had to do that, but I think it shows something very good when you bother to take those questions that are asked and answer them straight up front. I thought I understood that you were going to produce a report every year. When this project first came up, when they said, oh, great, we're going to put something on 10th and Sheridan, I can't say that I was overjoyed because I knew what the zoning was, and it called for, I believe, 5-story apartment buildings, which I didn't think fit in the neighborhood, but I knew that there was probably very little I could do about it. I appreciate it because you all, at the very beginning, listened to the neighbors and listened to people that surrounded that area and what they wanted. They didn't want more affordable housing. They didn't want more apartment buildings. They wanted for sale townhomes or homes or patio homes or something. And you took it upon yourself to downzone, which I haven't heard of happening very much. And I appreciate that. Now, I guess my clarification question is we've had a lot of what ifs. What if this happens? What if that happens? But is our job today just to decide if they've met the parameters of what a special metro district is? Not zoning, not parks, not streets, that's not schools, that's all addressed later? Is that my misunderstanding? Is that
later or earlier? I mean, to the extent it was addressed in the rezoning process, certainly the areas that are part of the service to be provided by the district. So you mentioned streets, you mentioned parks. If there are going to be parks and recreation facilities, it's legitimate to want to know what they have in mind for that and how that's going to be paid for. Okay. Same thing with streets and other improvements like that. To the extent we have questions about impact on the area because of the density, the number of units, number of cars, that's all part of the planning process. This is a little, to use the word again, a deviation from the planning process to look at the financing of public improvements, a parallel necessary for the development, but not really planning so much as it is financial planning, I guess you'd call it. So, yeah, the criteria that were referenced earlier are what the council needs to find have been satisfied in order to approve this service plan so that the district can go and get formed and then have the authority to pay for the things that they plan to pay for. The planning process goes on while that's happening, and those things are addressed there.
And those we can address. So what Lakewood gets is a through street on Depew. Is that?
Improvements to 10th Avenue and a through street on Depew.
And that's us. That's what we get, just straight out. Plus the fact of a development in an area that hasn't had a lot of people, I don't think, knocking on the door to develop, with parameters that have been set. I also appreciate the neighborhood coming together because I know you've read about special districts and you've taken it upon yourself to answer questions from the neighborhood around there because I think there was some fear that the special district would go beyond the boundaries that were published. And you did a good job of addressing that and saying no. So I'm obviously for this, but I just wanted to say I appreciate it, and I wanted to make sure that I understood what our job was here because I can get easily confused after an hour and a half or so. So thank you.
Any other questions before comments from council? Nope. Okay. You guys can sit down. Thank you. Well, I would echo Councilor Vincent, well said, and to Doug and your team, I think if there's ever a model of how a redevelopment, a rezone, a special district could come together, I think you guys have set the bar. You heard that told to you when you did the rezoning, and I'm saying that again. The fact that you've reached out, you've been active with the community, you've been partners is key to what really we look for. And you know, it just says a lot to who you are. You came to and heard council. You heard council's concerns, and in the report that council got, you addressed all those concerns that you had heard up until tonight. So you've been very proactive. I think this is a great project. Thank you to the neighborhood for coming out. I mean, this is a project, a for sale product that we have very little of in the city of Lakewood. And it's in an area where Councilor Vincent said we may not see much development. And so hats off to you for taking that risk. And I will fully support this proposal tonight. Councilor Gutwein.
Thank you. So just a couple of comments. I really like that you highlighted how you're going to inform the future buyers and the future owners, and how you highlighted that. And then, clearly to me, all the requirements and all the criteria is met. And on top of that, we just have such resounding support from the community, both tonight but also during the rezoning process. I really like that, you mentioned the efficient way to fund the infrastructure while maintaining the accessible cost, which is just so important in our community. There's not a day that goes by that I don't hear from someone in the community that they want a walkable, accessible, close to the light rail. This is, 100 feet, a couple blocks away from the light rail. So I am very excited about this project, and I am happy to support this really well-planned, sustainable, and community-supported project. Thank you for all of the work that you put into this. I really appreciate it.
Councilor Coop.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to thank Mr. Lenowitz, Mr. Watkins, not only for the thoroughness that you answered all of our questions up here, but your openness to listen to the Two Creeks organization, the neighbors, and to give them a product that they are very comfortable with, that they are welcoming in their neighborhood. I appreciate that very, very much. As the mayor said, it is a shining example of how we wish they all worked. You did great with getting inclusion from the neighborhood. And Two Creeks organization and your involvement with this, thank you. The citizens in the area, even though we haven't heard from them, we know that they've been watching, and I'm sure that they appreciate your involvements the whole time through this process. So thank everyone.
Councilor Abel.
My concern is not with this project. My concern is with the proliferation of governments in Lakewood, within Lakewood. We already have 20. If we put one on every 5-acre plot, will be a crazy quilt patchwork. So I hope that there is some restraint in our endorsement of these things. However, Mr. Olenowitz inspires confidence and trust. He has a way about him that is genuine and sincere. And I certainly think that the neighborhood knows better how to be served than we know how to serve them. So I will be voting in favor of this, but with concern that too many of these things will make Lakewood an unwieldy place. And when people call me and say, hey, I'm in your ward, and by golly, what's going on here? I want to be able to say, well, that's not the city of Lakewood you need to talk to. So I think we need to be very careful about proliferation of these things. But again, I favor the project, and I bow to the neighborhood acceptance of this.
Councilor Harrison.
I just wanted to tell everyone thank you very much for coming out this evening. The presentation was excellent. I feel like council really had a bunch of really great questions, and I feel really good about this project. And I would agree with Councilor Abel. When the neighborhood speaks, and when the neighborhood and the developers speak to each other, it makes our job as counselors a whole lot easier, and I'm very proud to support this. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Thank you. Well, I think the project is awesome. And I appreciate the amount of time that you've worked with Two Creeks and have come up with a project that is for sale homes. Like Councilman Abel, I'm having a hard time getting my arms around, frankly, creating another city within a city and a political entity, giving away the authority of eminent domain and also taxation. I am concerned about a patchwork quilt, as you mentioned, of these different authorities. Yours seems to be very well thought out. I'll likely be voting yes, but frankly, I have a lot of reservations about us as a city going down this road.
Councilor Roybal.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, after listening and reading and researching and finding out basically what a special district does, eminent domain, that one, it's very difficult for me to get past. It's very, very hard. Being able to take somebody's property, even if it's limited for the common good of all, and that's very hard for me. And, you know, it would be an easier thing for me to take a look at it. The other issue is in that community's pretty, they've been around there for many years, eastern side of the Lakewood. I have family that lives in that area, and I drive by there all the time. So I understand the people there, and I understand their language. And when you have higher traffic, now this is kind of something that I would want to say, is that the East Coast has the light rail, and they've done fantastic, and they're like, you know, they like the public transportation. But here in Colorado, I got to tell you, we love our vehicles. We're not going to give our vehicles up. And so having just that one entrance and exit right there on Depew and 10th Avenue, that 10th Avenue is going to be the bottleneck in the middle that's going to give us the most problems in the future. Once we approve of this, you know, there's no going back. It's there. The people are going to have to live with it one way or the other. And one thing that I got to also emphasize is those folks, they like their ditch water, you know, and there's going to be a problem with that. And, you know, I'm hoping that we can kind of work those things out. But even the streets on 10th Avenue, and that's why I emphasize this, is that you're going to have people that are going to be impatient. The old folks are accustomed to having their way. And then you're going to have new folks and new kids. And when you're talking 136 vehicles a day in the morning and then at night coming back and forth on 10th Avenue between Sheridan and Harlan and then dispersing out from there, that's going to be a major impact for the community. And a lot of people aren't going to like that. I mean, they're going to see that and they're going to look at that. So that's why I was asking for road improvements. And I understand that, you know, walking, curbs, gutters, and those are welcomed in certain areas. But some of those folks there, they love their ditch water. They will not give their ditch water up. They'll give the sidewalks up, they'll give their streets up, but they want their ditch water. So I just wanted to emphasize that to you. But eminent domain, I'm having a very difficult time giving up, having city council give up eminent domain rights. Now, if you were to say that you would come up and ask the blessing from City Council and let City Council make that decision, then this would be a no-brainer for me. So in having that position, I'm having some very strong reservations, and for just that one little piece, I don't think I can support that. So, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. All right, I'll take a motion.
I move for adoption of Resolution 2016-34.
Second.
All right, motion and second. Please cast your votes. And that carries 9 ayes, 2 nays, the nays being Councilor Roybal and Councilor Johnson. Congratulations. Good luck on your project. All right. Anything under general business? Okay. Ms. Hodson, you have an executive report.
Yes, thank you. Very briefly, I have one update and 3 special recognitions that I'm happy to be able to tell you about today. The first one is an update. Many of you have asked about the progress on the selection for the police chief's process. So you know that we do have an executive search firm that's been retained. We've gone through enormous information gathering, interviews with police personnel, as well as other partners in our region. And we have a recruitment brochure in final form, and we're ready to send that out. So I will keep you updated as we progress, but that's where we are now. And now for some really cool news. We have 3 outstanding awards that we have received as an organization. One is to an outstanding employee, one is for an outstanding playground, and one is to an outstanding event. So first I'll start with the outstanding employee. The First JD Bar Association announced that Judge Stavik has received the 2016 Award of Merit. This honor is, I'm going to read it, awarded to the attorney member of the First Judicial District Bar Association who primarily practices in this district and has provided distinguished service to the bar and the community deserving of our association's highest recognition. So congratulations to our own judge, Ann Stavik. Secondarily, Colorado Lottery selected the City of Lakewood, our Green Gables Park Playground, for the Starburst Winner Award. That's a wonderful recognition, and they select 22 projects, and the City of Lakewood got one of those. And finally, an event that was honored, our own event called Inspire Arts Week, has been selected as a winner of the best event in the large community category. And this was given by Downtown Colorado, Inc., and the Governor's Award for Downtown Excellence. And here are the comments that the judges said about this particular project. Inspire Arts Week is a great example of community-driven efforts and provides a variety of opportunities over the course of the week for citizens to engage in their community arts culture and also helps support local artists, businesses, and cultural venues. This event is in its 5th year and has shown increased partner participation and community engagement, leading to positive economic development. And they said they'd like to see more photos. So we'll get on that. But congratulations to Judge Stavik, to the Green Gables Playground, as well as Inspire Arts Week. Thank you.
Well, we'll keep with the arts, and many folks here had the opportunity to attend Mural Fest, the 2nd annual, and the groundbreaking of the ribbon cutting, actually, of the Lamar Station Plaza betterments through the Lakewood Reinvestment Authority, which is also this body here. So it was a really cool deal, and other folks may want to touch on it, but even bigger than last year, there were even some folks up here that might have bought a piece of art. So very exciting stuff, and check it out next year. But it's, again, a testament to the neighborhood, to the Arts District, and to the Business Improvement District coming together and celebrating what used to be a real eyesore on West Colfax after it kind of declined, and now it's really coming back to life. So it's really cool. Party on the Plaza this Friday from 4 to 7. There's going to be food trucks. First 100 people that show up get a $10 credit for food. So I see about 15 left in here. Hopefully you'll be all part of that first 100. And this is kind of cool. Council, everybody on council got a copy of this, but from time to time we partner with DRCOG and we look at opportunities to better traffic flow. And sometimes you think, well, does that really make a difference? But they just looked at Union Boulevard, Union and Sims from Colfax to Alameda, and the average daily savings by reprogramming and retiming the lights, they've saved 798 vehicle travel time. That's 798 hours in a day in vehicle travel time, 624 gallons of fuel consumption. Time and fuel costs is about $19,000 daily, $4.78 million annually. Greenhouse gas emissions, 11,981 pounds, and emissions of 6 EPA regulated pollutants, about 131 pounds. So we know that we've seen increases in, there's some delays on Union Boulevard, but just through some timing of lights, you may see your day get better. It's gone from in the morning peak from 5 minutes 43 seconds down to 3 minutes and 40 seconds. In the evening peak, 8 minutes and 6 seconds to 6 minutes 11 seconds. So that's measurable. That's good stuff. That's through our partnership with Dr. Cog. Maybe lucky for you, you will not see us for the next 2 weeks. We will not have council, so we will be back in force, I believe, on September 12th. And I will have a walk and talk at the Bear Creek Lake trailhead at the Stonehouse on September 10th. Thank you, Stacy. At 9 a.m. So come on out, and we actually have some folks who authored a book about that area and are down there quite a bit, and they're going to lead us on a little tour. So that's all I have. Mayor Pro Tem Johnson.
Thank you. During my comment, I said I would likely support it, but after hearing Councilman Roybal, I couldn't live with myself if I gave away the powers of eminent domain and taxation. So I just need to make that clear. Thank you.
Council President Shakti.
I just wanted to thank Representative Pedersen, who attended the first half of the meeting. I think that when the different parts of government know what's going on with each other, it makes all of our services better. So,
Councilor Gutwein.
Thank you. Just wanted to say a couple of words about all the exciting things that happened last weekend. Teddy and I went to, that's my son, and I went to Cops That Cook, and our Lakewood Police Department can make an incredible Mickey Mouse pancake. In case you didn't know that, it was really, really fun. We went to the playground ribbon cutting, and even though it rained, it was still really exciting. There was an amazing turnout. Just really fun to see all the kids with their new playground and how the community and the city really rallied to make that happen.
How was that for the viewers? What playground?
That would be, I never know where to look, at the Westgate Elementary School in Ward 5. Thank you. And last, we had our Ward 5 meeting on Saturday morning, and we had an amazing turnout. Our topic was transportation for all ages, and we just had a really engaging discussion from people of all ages talking about wanting to make sure that they're able to get where they need to go as they, either with their young kids or as they have to give up their vehicle. And so it was just wonderful. We learned a lot. Thank you.
Councilor Franks.
Thanks. I first wanted to say that I travel Union morning and night, and I have noticed the difference. Much less aggressive driving, which was getting to the point of being dangerous, and I do notice. So I just wanted to say I travel it twice a day during the week. It's definitely improvement. Did also want to, I've been getting a lot of complaints about people exiting the King Soopers parking lot that would be exiting kind of to the back area onto Van Gordon, and they want the city to address like a no left turn. And I have followed up with the city and need to let folks know that because that's private property, you really do need to contact the property management company for that. And if you need some assistance with that, let me know. And we also did have a really good turnout at our ward meeting. We spoke on code enforcement, had really good turnout, appreciate the staff coming and all the great information that they provided and all the freebies they provided. Some of the cooler ones went, and so it was really nice to see people taking the dog waste bag, little cute little guys. And so I'm asking the city, please order more of those. Those got snapped up really quickly, and I'm encouraged to see how many people were taking those to give to friends and neighbors. So thank you.
Councilor Coop. Councilor Abel.
We also had a rather good Ward 1 meeting Saturday. We had nearly 80 people for a political forum. We had the candidates from House District 23 and District 28. We had a good exchange. We had Republicans in the audience applauding Democrats in their comments, and we had Democrats in the audience applauding Republicans in their comments. And I think it was a very responsive group of folks, candidates that we had there, and I appreciate that very much. I want to piggyback on the mayor's comments about Mural Fest. I went 3 times Saturday and wore myself out every time. It was good food, good people, good art, and very enjoyable. Looking forward to next year.
Thank you, sir. And Councilor Abel didn't want to mention, but he is one who walked away with a brand new mural that will find a home in a nice place for the public to enjoy. So thank you for that.
And the mayor's been a little bit too modest because my bid was outbid twice. Bill Marino, who was here earlier and represents 40 West Arts District, said that if I could find somebody who would throw in the rest, he'd ante up a little bit too. And so I found the mayor on his second beer over at Westfax, and it was an easy sell. The mayor joined Bill and I, and we hope that we can find a place for that mural on public property.
Took a little bit of arm twisting. Councilor Harrison.
It sounds like we all had a wonderful weekend. It was really busy. I'm going to look to the future, and since it's going to be a couple of weeks before we meet again, I just wanted to remind those who might be interested, Ward 5 will be talking about senior issues in our September meeting, so that would be the 3rd Saturday. We'd love to have you. And I just wanted to also, I have to brag any chance I get, the wonderful person who headed up Mural Fest is also our wonderful Diana Wilson, who is a past city councilor for Ward 5. So go, Diana, you did a great job.
Councilor Roybal.
No report.
Councilor Vincent.
I can't say anything else more wonderful than that's already been said.
Councilor Wickman.
Our next town hall meeting is September 10th. And as a public service, we're going to be having a forum on the issues that are going to be on the ballot. Not all of them, but the ones will be the school board bond issue mill levy and the Colorado healthcare one, and then one other. And so three of the issues will be discussed at length. So that's September 10th, Saturday morning from 9:30 to 11 at the Green Mountain Presbyterian Church. Thank you.
Anything else for the good of the order? Okay, I'd like to thank our police agents for coming out tonight, and I hope you enjoyed the meeting, but thanks for keeping us safe. And we are adjourned at 9:37.